of their plan is to cannibalise that, so that they actually, like in Greece at one point, they hoover up the left and they control it, and so they will never want to be outflanked on the left.
But what I'm getting from you then, not to put words in your mouth, is that if you brought it out slightly and you look at the experience of Italy and Greece, when kind of very left ideologically led parties got in power, they got pretty well turfed out pretty quickly by credit markets because they priced against their bonds, and by Brussels. They locked horns with Brussels, never a good idea, and came off, and they're almost gone off the political landscapes now. I don't think Sinn Féin, based on what you're saying, are silly enough to make that kind of.
But that speaks to the other factor, which I think does bear some analysis. It's a political point, and that is, I think since Brexit, and there's something about the way young people support Irish teams, and the Wolf Tones and the Up the Ra and whatever. There is certainly, since the 1998 Belfast Agreement, since the cessation of violence on the industrial scale it was previously, with all the horrors of that, there is no living memory of young people of violence. And I honestly believe that, coupled with Brexit and a kind of, the centenary of 1916 and all of that and the way it was commemorated, I definitely think the younger generation, even the middle class, are a lot greener than their parents. And I don't mean that in the environmental sense. I mean it in the Republican sense. And I think that will become their core mission for their second term. You know what I mean? Sometimes you pivot, the job is half done. They will try and use that because it's authentic. It's what they really care about. It's part of their DNA. And it has been for their entire last existence, in modernization over the last decade or so. So what I'm saying is that one of the things, it's not all about the economy in terms of votes, and I do think they will connect with people who haven't thought through the consequences of United Ireland, the consequences of how Southern society would have to change, how we're going to pay for the North, all of these things. People don't want to know that. They want to press ahead with that agenda, and they want their politicians to do the same. And in that regard, both in terms of Fianna Fáil's perspective of dealing with Sinn Féin and with, Micheál Martin's emphasis on uniting people before united territory, it's all very sensible. I actually think it will require a new Fianna Fáil leader to make all that sustainable.
And then when you just when you look at that together, then if you look at the policy manifestos of the main parties, including Sinn Féin, they're entirely silent on any kind of wholesale reform of the effectiveness and and performance of the public sector. I mean, the National Children's Hospital is a standout, and yet people don't seem to be drawing a connection between that and the idea that the state can build all these houses.
Let's be clear. Since corporation tax went from 5 billion to 25 billion, any, we'll say, Colin McCarthy-esque board snip ideology, value for money, like I even find when I'm, interviewing people and asking questions, and I write down my notes, say I'm talking to someone from Teagasc or Tusla or something like that, and like I put VFM, value for money, and it actually doesn't feature. There's buckets of money around, and there is no hot breath on the back of the neck anywhere in government, regardless of who the political masters are for that. And it is a tragedy because, you know what, the one certainty, and I suppose where I'm leading to all this, when I'm taking all your rationale and all your cerebral points of this mightn't work out great for Ireland. There's a saying, events, dear boy. There's another saying with one, cycles, dear boy. Everything in politics is a cycle, because whoever is threatening the incumbent in any jurisdiction, the one thing you're going to promise is change. And eventually you have so much incremental change, you come back to where you start. So I'm sufficiently cynical and long enough around to know that there will be an end to a decade of Sinn Féin, and it will actually be a mirror image of what you said has happened on the continent.
Yeah, and I think that's very interesting. But it's analogous, I think, is it not, to the Irish soccer team? I mean, you can have a very good manager, but you don't have the players, you won't get the results. I mean, until and unless there is a complete reform of creating a meritocracy inside in the public sector, Sinn Féin or anybody else won't be
Well,
able to deliver on the
thing
target.
I would caveat about that, other than my general point about cycles, is technology is going to change everything. I mean, we live in an era whereby the pace of AI and what it can do to mundane administration, I don't think it's beyond the wit of the software, cloud, tech sector to sell products and services to governments that are going to displace people and that you won't have people replaced. I actually think that the whole of society, the whole of public services, I see it because I do a lot of work in the health sector, and there are now 300,000 apps, and a lot of them are wearables and preventables and so on. What can be done to appointment systems, taking paper out of the health service, is revolutionary, absolutely revolutionary, and it's a lot more efficient and it has better patient outcomes. So one thing I would just say about what I think will drive reform of the public sector is not a political will or leadership. It'll actually come through technology.